You're watching Northern Crimes.
Yosemite National Park is a place of unparalleled natural beauty. With its towering granite cliffs, cascading waterfalls, ancient sequoia groves, and meadows blanketed in wildflowers, it's long been a magnet for tourists, hikers, and climbers from around the world. Designated as one of the first national parks in the United States, Yosemite stands as a testament to the untamed wilderness of the Sierra Nevada. Each year, millions flock to its trails and vistas, seeking inspiration, adventure, or simply a moment of peace beneath its vast open skies. Yet beneath Yosemite's tranquil surface lies a sobering truth. The park is one of the most active regions in the country for search and rescue operations, with hundreds conducted annually. Between 2018 and 2020 alone, over 730 searches were carried out in its rugged terrain. The vast wilderness, unpredictable weather, and hidden dangers have contributed to Yosemite's reputation as one of the largest clusters of missing persons cases globally, with dozens disappearing each year. Some vanish without a trace, leaving only questions. What happened to them in this breathtaking yet unforgiving landscape? This is the true story of 6 hikers who entered Yosemite's wilderness and never came back. Welcome to Northern Crimes. In July 1981, 14-year-old Stacey Arras embarked on what was meant to be a peaceful horseback riding trip through the breathtaking wilderness of Yosemite National Park. Yet, in an instant, her journey transformed into one of the park's most enduring mysteries. How could a teenager vanish without a trace in the midst of her group, with no clear explanation or evidence? Decades later, the unanswered questions surrounding Stacey's disappearance continue to haunt investigators and her family alike. Stacey Arras was a vibrant teenager from Saratoga, California, a small city south of San Francisco. Known for her bright smile and independent spirit, Stacey was the youngest of 3 siblings in the Arras family. Her parents, George and Carol, encouraged outdoor activities, and the trip to Yosemite was part of Stacey's summer adventures with her father. An aspiring photographer, she carried her Olympus camera on this trip, eager to capture the natural beauty of Yosemite's rugged landscapes. Stacey's family described her as adventurous but cautious, a girl who loved exploring but always stayed mindful of her surroundings. The trip began on July 17, 1981, with Stacey, her father George, and a group of horseback riders setting out from Tuolumne Meadows. After a scenic ride along the John Muir Trail, they arrived at the Sunrise High Sierra Camp, nestled at 9,400 feet above sea level. That evening, Stacey decided to explore the nearby Sunrise Lakes to take photos. She invited her father to join her, but he declined. Instead, Gerald Stewart, a 70-year-old member of their group, accompanied her part way. As the two made their way toward the lake, Gerald grew tired and sat on a boulder while Stacey ventured ahead alone. The group back at the camp could see Stacey briefly as she walked down a granite hill, her camera in hand. But she disappeared behind a line of trees and never returned. When she didn't come back after several minutes, Gerald and the others grew concerned. A search ensued, but no trace of Stacey could be found, apart from a lens cap from her camera near the tree line. At the time, the search for Stacey was one of the largest in Yosemite's history, involving over 100 searchers, sniffer dogs, helicopters, and even the National Guard. For 9 days, search teams combed through a 5-square-mile area surrounding Sunrise Lakes. Despite their extensive efforts, no further clues were discovered, not her camera, clothing, or any sign of her remains. The rugged terrain dotted with granite boulders and dense tree lines posed significant challenges for search teams. Investigators theorized that Stacey could have fallen into a rock crack or wandered off the trail. However, the lack of any physical evidence, not even a footprint, left searchers puzzled. Adding to the mystery, Stacey's braces and clothing would have been easily identifiable, yet nothing surfaced in the years that followed. Law enforcement also considered foul play, but there was no evidence to implicate Gerald or anyone else in the group. Park rangers interviewed hikers in the area, but none reported seeing Stacey. The case soon grew cold. Over 40 years later, the disappearance of Stacey Arras remains unsolved. The case file, reportedly over 2,000 pages long, has never been fully released by the National Park Service, citing an ongoing investigation. This lack of transparency has fueled speculation and frustration among researchers and Stacey's family. David Pilatus, an investigator who specializes in mysterious disappearances, has pointed to the case as emblematic of broader issues with missing persons cases in national parks. More than 40 years later, Stacey's absence continues to cast a long shadow over Yosemite Valley. For her family and those who search for answers, the hope remains that one day the truth will emerge, offering resolution to a mystery that has endured for decades. In the summer of 1988, Yosemite National Park became the setting for yet another unsettling mystery. Timothy Barnes, a 24-year-old man on his first visit to the park, embarked on what should have been a routine hike to Polydome Lakes. But when he failed to return, the vast wilderness of Yosemite seemed to swallow him whole. Despite a massive search effort, no trace of Tim was ever found, leaving behind only questions in the quiet expanse of the Sierra Nevada. Timothy Barnes was a young man from Rancho Cucamonga, California. Standing at an imposing 6 feet 4 inches and weighing 180 pounds, Tim was described as being in good physical condition. He had brown, shoulder-length hair, brown eyes, and distinctive features, including a wart on the right side of his nose and an orthopedic pin in his left ankle. Friends and family knew him as adventurous yet practical, someone who approached life with energy and care. At the time of his disappearance, he was excited to visit Yosemite for the first time, eager to explore its breathtaking trails and stunning beauty. On the morning of July 5th, 1988, Tim set out on a solo 6-mile hike from the Murphy Creek trailhead near Tenaya Lake. His goal was to reach Polydome Lakes, a quiet and remote spot within Yosemite's high country. Tim was last seen at approximately 9 a.m., wearing a white t-shirt, gray sweatpants, brown-framed sunglasses, and carrying a yellow day pack. He'd planned to return by 4:30 p.m., but when he failed to appear, his companions grew concerned. The next morning, they reported him missing to park rangers, triggering a large-scale search effort. Tim's disappearance was perplexing. He was familiar with outdoor activities, and the trail he intended to follow was well-marked and relatively straightforward. Yet, somewhere between Tenaya Lake and Polydome Lakes, he vanished. The search for Timothy Barnes was a large one. It involved as many as 170 ground searchers, multiple dog teams, and aerial support from 2 helicopters. Infrared technology was deployed during nighttime searches, and rescuers surveyed the rugged terrain for over a week. Despite these efforts, not a single clue was uncovered. No footprints, clothing, or belongings were ever found. Park officials theorized that Tim might have wandered off the trail and fallen into a hidden area, such as a granite crevice, where searchers and dogs might not be able to detect him. However, this explanation raised its own questions, as Tim's height and build made him unlikely to remain completely concealed. Others speculated that he may have encountered a sudden medical emergency or become disoriented, but there was no evidence to support either of those ideas. The search effort gradually scaled back after 7 days, with just a few rangers continuing sporadic checks for signs of Tim. By July 19, 1990, 2 years after his disappearance, Timothy Barnes was officially declared dead. His body has never been recovered, leaving investigators and his family without closure. Today, Timothy Barnes's case remains open, a troubling mystery within Yosemite. Decades later, his disappearance still raises questions about how someone could vanish so completely on a well-traveled trail. Despite the park's extensive efforts, no evidence has ever surfaced, and his family has been left to mourn without resolution. In the summer of 2011, George Penca joined a church group on a trip to Yosemite National Park, eager to spend time with friends and explore one of America's most iconic destinations. But what started as an exciting adventure turned into a strange mystery. George vanished without a trace while hiking the strenuous Upper Yosemite Falls Trail, leaving investigators puzzled. How could a man disappear in such a well-traveled area without a single clue? George Penca was a 30-year-old man from Hawthorne, California, just southwest of Los Angeles. At 5 foot 10 inches tall and weighing 240 pounds, George was described as having a stocky build with dark brown hair and blue eyes. He lived with his mother and was known to enjoy spending time with his church community. Although he wasn't an experienced hiker or outdoorsman, George was excited about the opportunity to visit Yosemite. He was last seen wearing gray sweatpants with white stripes, a black t-shirt that read D&B across his chest, or a black tank top, and gray-blue running shoes. He carried a blue cloth bag with limited food and water. Those who knew him described him as friendly and happy to be part of the group. On June 17, 2011, George's church group of 80 people visited Yosemite. That morning, 20 members of the group decided to tackle the Upper Yosemite Falls Trail, a challenging hike that rises over 2,400 feet above the valley floor. The group made it to the top of the falls around 2:40 p.m., taking in the views of the valley below. As they prepared to descend, the group agreed to hike back down at their own pace and meet at the bottom near the Yosemite Lodge. George mentioned to his cousin that he wasn't feeling well and might head down earlier. His companions assumed he'd gone ahead and would be waiting at the bottom, but when the group reunited later that afternoon, George wasn't there. Concerned, they waited, but by 9 p.m., it was clear something was wrong, and it was then they reported George missing. Yosemite Search and Rescue, known as YOSAR, launched an immediate search on the evening of June 17th, focusing on the area near the top of the trail where George was last seen. By the following morning, the search had expanded into a massive operation involving over 100 search and rescue personnel, 2 helicopters, and 6 search dog teams. Rescuers combed a 70-square-mile area of rugged terrain, ranging in elevation from 4,000 to 8,000 feet. Tracker dogs equipped with GPS devices were also on the trail, while helicopters surveyed from above. Despite their efforts, no one found any signs of George, not even a footprint or an item of clothing. The steep and rocky terrain posed significant challenges to the search crews, and after nearly a week of intensive searching, the operation was scaled back on June 23rd. Park officials transitioned to a, quote, limited continuous search, meaning the case remained open and any new leads would be pursued, but active searching was no longer feasible. Over the years, no new evidence has surfaced to explain George's disappearance. To this day, George Penca's fate remains unknown. Yosemite Park officials never uncovered any signs of foul play, and his bank accounts and personal information haven't been accessed since his disappearance. Theories about what happened to George range from misadventure, perhaps he wandered off the trail and fell into an inaccessible area, to more speculative ideas such as foul play or even voluntary disappearance. However, these theories lack supporting evidence. The lack of any physical trace, despite the exhaustive search efforts, adds an air of mystery to this strange case. In the wilderness of Yosemite, a routine camping trip turned into a haunting mystery. On September 21st, 2016, 74-year-old Peter Jackson was expected to check out of his campsite at White Wolf Campground and return home. Instead, Peter vanished without a trace, leaving behind his car, camping gear, and a baffling puzzle that remains unsolved to this day. How could an experienced hiker with no known health issues disappear so completely? Peter Jackson was born on June 14, 1942. At 74 years old, Peter was in remarkable physical shape for his age, with no medical concerns. Standing 5 feet 10 inches tall and weighing 155 pounds, he had a slender build, blue eyes, and gray hair, accompanied by a short gray beard. An avid hiker, Peter regularly engaged in outdoor activities to maintain his health and well-being. He was described by friends and family as resourceful, adventurous, and deeply connected to nature. For Peter, a camping trip to Yosemite's White Wolf Campground was familiar and an exciting escape. Peter's family last heard from him on September 17, 2016, when he texted his son to inform him that he was on his way to Yosemite. He planned to camp at site number 58 at White Wolf Campground, a location surrounded by picturesque meadows, forests, and lakes. Known for its tranquility, White Wolf is a popular seasonal campground that typically closes by late September. Peter had reserved his site through September 21st, with plans to return home afterward. After his arrival at White Wolf Campground, he set up his site and prepared for a series of day hikes. Then, on September 21st, the day of his planned departure, Peter failed to check out. Campground staff noted that his car and camping gear remained untouched, yet Peter was nowhere to be found. For several days, the staff monitored his site, hoping he would return. But by September 26th, 5 days after his expected departure, Peter's family reported him missing. Search efforts began immediately, but they faced a critical challenge. No one knew which trail he'd taken. The White Wolf area offers multiple hiking options, including the Lukens Lake Trail and the Hardin Lake Trail, both of which are relatively short and manageable for an experienced hiker. However, Yosemite National Park encompasses over 700,000 acres of wilderness, with trails spanning 800 miles. Finding Peter would be like finding a needle in a haystack. The search for Peter Jackson officially commenced on September 26, 2016, with ground and air teams scanning the area near White Wolf Campground. Helicopters, dogs, and dozens of search and rescue personnel joined the effort, meticulously combing through dense forests and rugged terrain. Investigators speculated that Peter had embarked on a day hike as his Royal Blue Outdoor Products backpack was missing from his campsite. Despite all the searching, no immediate clues were found. The situation became increasingly dire as inclement weather loomed, and by October 2nd, 2016, the search was transitioned to a limited, continuous mode. But the story didn't end there. Nearly 3 years later, in the summer of 2019, Peter's backpack was discovered between Aspen Valley and Smith Peak, roughly 20 miles west of White Wolf Campground. The discovery reignited interest in the case, but it provided no clear answers. No additional remains or evidence were located, leaving investigators baffled. To this day, the disappearance of Peter Jackson remains unsolved. Yosemite National Park officials continue to hold the case open, urging anyone with information to come forward. While it's widely believed that Peter became lost or injured during his hike, the lack of significant evidence fuels speculation about other possibilities, including foul play or disorientation leading him into the void. On a cool February evening in 2016, 35-year-old Alan Christopher Martin walked out of the Chicken Ranch Casino in Jamestown, California. Surveillance footage captured him crossing the parking lot toward Chicken Ranch Road at 10:30 p.m. His gray jacket illuminated under the lot's lights. But he never returned home, never contacted his family, and seemingly vanished into the night. What happened to Alan Martin? To this day, the mystery remains an enigma. Alan Martin was a dedicated father and a devoted grandson. Described by his grandmother as a, quote, very caring person, Alan was the type of man who would fix fences, chop down trees, or help with computer issues whenever his family needed assistance. He was a licensed vocational nurse at Highland Health Center in Modesto, where he'd been employed since July 2015. Alan also had 2 young children, a 10-year-old daughter and a 5-year-old son, who were the center of his universe. Standing 6 feet 2 inches tall and weighing 200 pounds, Alan had brown hair and brown eyes. On the night he disappeared, he was wearing blue jeans, a long-sleeved blue shirt, and a gray jacket. By all accounts, he was a reliable man with no known medical issues or any reasons to disappear voluntarily. February 9th, 2016 started as a typical day for Alan. That evening, he accompanied family members to the Chicken Ranch Casino in Jamestown, a rural area located about 45 minutes from Yosemite National Park. Alan spent the evening at the casino with his loved ones, but for reasons that remain unclear, he left the casino alone at 10:30 p.m. Surveillance cameras captured Alan walking across the parking lot, headed toward Chicken Ranch Road. However, this was the last confirmed sighting of him. When family members couldn't reach him the following day, they reported him missing to the Tuolumne County Sheriff's Office. The Sheriff's Office launched an immediate investigation into Alan's disappearance. They reviewed the surveillance footage from the casino and questioned area businesses in an attempt to gather leads. Search teams, including a helicopter, combed through the rugged areas surrounding Chicken Ranch Road, but no clues were uncovered. Additionally, there was no indication that Alan had made contact with anyone after leaving the casino. His phone record showed no outgoing calls or text messages beyond a message he sent to his girlfriend earlier in the evening. Alan's bank accounts and credit cards remained untouched, and he failed to show up for work or attend upcoming court dates related to child custody matters. Friends and family described Alan's behavior that evening as normal, and no evidence of foul play emerged. Despite their best efforts, law enforcement was unable to determine what happened after he walked away from the casino parking lot. As days turned into weeks, the active search for Alan Martin was scaled back. The sheriff's office labeled the case as open but inactive, pending any new leads. His disappearance left his family devastated. His grandmother, Jackie, described her heartbreak, noting how Alan had always been there for her when she needed him. On top of that, his 2 young children were left to grow up without their father. To this day, no trace of Alan Martin has been found. His family continues to hold out hope for closure, but the mystery surrounding his disappearance remains as baffling as it was in 2016. It was a clear September morning when 31-year-old Joel Thomazin, an experienced outdoorsman, set out on what should have been a straightforward solo hike in Yosemite. Armed with a bright red inflatable kayak and an array of camping gear, Joel planned a 4-day trek to Lake Eleanor and back. But somewhere between the towering cliffs and wilderness, Joel vanished without a trace, leaving his family and search teams to grapple with a mystery that remains unsolved to this day. Joel Thomazin was no stranger to the outdoors. A dedicated family man from Denair, California, Joel was described as a skilled hiker and kayaker who relished exploring nature's beauty. Born on January 1st, 1990, Joel graduated from Sonora Union High School and later earned degrees in history and entrepreneurial business. He served as a civil affairs specialist with the United States Army Reserve and worked for Sandy Brothers Royal Restoration in Modesto. Joel's life revolved around his wife Amanda and their 2-year-old son Titus, with whom he shared a deep bond. Known for his resilience and resourcefulness, Joel's disappearance in Yosemite's rugged terrain defied understanding. On September 6, 2021, Joel departed from Hetch Hetchy Reservoir on a solo hike to Lake Eleanor, a 9-mile journey through remote wilderness. His plan was to return by September 9th. He was last seen by a park ranger around 5 p.m. on September 6th as he navigated the steep trails above the O'Shaughnessy Dam. Joel's gear included a yellow and gray Kelty backpack, a green sleeping bag, a blue-green hammock, and his distinctive bright red inflatable kayak. When he failed to return, the alarm was raised. Search and rescue operations began in earnest, involving helicopters, boats, kayaks, search dogs, and ground teams. Crews scoured the trails surrounding Hetch Hetchy, Lake Eleanor, Miguel Meadow, and as far as the Grand Canyon of Tuolumne River. Despite their efforts, no signs of Joel or his equipment were found during the initial search phase. The investigation into Joel's disappearance was one of the most extensive in Yosemite's recent history. Park officials initially theorized that Joel might have extended his trip, potentially heading toward Cherry Lake or the Grand Canyon of the Tuolumne. This theory guided the search, which covered an expansive area north of Tioga Road, extending to Tuolumne Meadows and Cherry Lake. Joel's wife, Amanda, and other family members actively supported the search. Amanda's social media posts conveyed the desperation and hope shared by thousands who prayed for Joel's safe return. Despite these efforts, the search was suspended in October 2021 due to worsening weather and a lack of new leads. In the months that followed, Joel's family sought closure while raising awareness about his case. A GoFundMe campaign was launched to support Amanda and Titus during the difficult time, highlighting the financial hardships caused by Joel's absence. To this day, Joel Thomazin remains missing, and no clues have emerged to explain his disappearance. Like some of the previous cases we've covered, the NPS has classified his case as a limited, continuous search. Joe's bright red kayak and distinct equipment, which might have been key to locating him, have never been seen or recovered. For Amanda and Titus, the hope of closure remains, as does the memory of a devoted husband and father whose adventurous spirit left an indelible mark on those who knew him. In the shadow of Yosemite's towering pines and ancient forests, 6 lives have vanished, leaving behind unanswered questions and unrelenting heartache. Despite exhaustive search efforts and the passage of years, the fates of these missing hikers remain shrouded in mystery. What draws people into this breathtaking yet treacherous wilderness, only for them to seemingly disappear without a trace? Is it the unpredictable forces of nature, human error, or something more sinister? As the wilderness keeps its secrets, the stories of those who vanished continue to echo through the park's rugged trails and haunting beauty, leaving us with one chilling question: who or what will be next?